Thank you again, Michelle, for sharing your story and the story of your daughter. We certainly appreciate your commitment to fighting HIV and AIDS stigma, and also for being a role model for women and for people living with HIV and AIDS. Let's give one more round of applause to Michelle Lopez. All right, the International Conference on Stigma here at Howard University exists today because of the vision of two dedicated and unrelenting doctors who care very deeply about those impacted by stigma. Dr. Sohail Rana and Dr. Rebecca Vargas Jackson. So here to provide you with some of the conference objectives, we have Dr. Rana, Professor and Director of Pediatric Hematology, HIV at Howard University Hospital, and Dr. Rebecca Vargas Jackson, an infectious disease specialist and the coordinator of the proposed Center for Stigma and Health Literacy here at Howard University.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. You heard from a wonderful mother. I've been taking care of children with HIV. And what you're looking at is surrogate father to close to 100 children who are now young adults. I started taking care of children with HIV about 27 years ago, and many of them have grown up. And thanks to them and their families, I swear to God, I really feel like I'm growing up, because they taught me about humanity, the real human side of medicine. We all know that actually what determines the health outcome of any illness has nothing to do with our medicine, has nothing to do with the health sector. It falls outside. It falls in the social sector. And one of them, I think, stigma, and you know, I'm looking at some of the most wonderful people sitting right here who are in control. They talk about it, but when it comes to money, $15 billion going into vaccine research. Who would accept vaccine trials? Who would take vaccine if people are not willing to go get tested? That's the reality. That is the reality. And I just want to show you three quick faces of stigma. These are the stories I've lived with. And I think let's quit. It's okay. I think I'm capable of telling these stories. This was 1995. I don't think many of you remember that in 1995, Bill Clinton made a decision to close a leprosarium in Louisiana. It was called Carvel House. And I was sitting, my daughter was 9-year-old, Yasmin, and I was sitting on a Sunday morning reading this story. And there was the story of a lady named Faith. She was 78 years of age, and she lived in that Carvel House for the last 69 years. And she still recalls the day her father, who was one of the richest men in Louisiana, drove to the school. It was a chauffeured car. She said, I was brought out of the classroom. They took me to this doctor who looked at me, and all I remember is he nodded. They took me out. They brought me here. My father never looked at me. The chauffeur drove me to this door. I don't even remember my name anymore. They gave me a new name. And for the last 69 years, I never saw my parents. And this is the only family, these 10 people, 12 people who are living here, they are my only family. I wish the slide would come up, but I was going to show you the graveyard in Carvel House. where most of the people who are buried there are buried not with their real names. They were given patient numbers. They were given pseudonyms because the families didn't want to own up to leprosy. You call it ignorance? It is much worse than ignorance. Now, I want to take you to something very personal. This happened just a few months ago. And one of the wonderful ladies and her child, we took care of her. We took care of her for the last 5-6 years. I met the mother when her baby was born, baby was infected. And this young lady would not bring her child to the clinic very often. She would call in for refills for her child's HIV medications. So about a few months ago, I confronted her and she broke down. And I have to use the word, I know many doctors are not going to like this. She said, I hate all doctors, she said it much. She said, I hate all hospitals. And I was taken aback, but she was looking at me. She said, Dr. Rana, I don't look at you as a doctor, you're my brother, but I hate all doctors. I said, what happened? I'm here, talk to me. And she said, 4 years ago, I was pregnant, in labor, and they convinced me I need a C-section. 4 doctors came to me to convince me I need a C-section. And I was to have a C-section at 7:30 in the morning. And at 7 o'clock, they got the results from my HIV test. And they told me that I had HIV. She said, oh, I'll deal with it. I'm worried about C-section. And then it was 8 o'clock. And then it was 9 o'clock. And then it was 11 o'clock. And I kept calling nurses. I said, you were telling me I need an emergency C-section. What happened? Say, oh, we are still looking for an obstetrician who can do your C-section. She said, Dr. Rana, I felt so dirty. I felt untouchable. I never want to see the face of another doctor after that. So every time I walk into the hospital, I get a panic attack. I feel filthy. I go over all those feelings all over again. I have the same pain that recurs. I feel like I've been permanently scarred. Folks, and I want you all to say this, it doesn't have to be that way. This is beyond ignorance. These doctors perfectly knew that they cannot contract HIV. They're supposed to follow universal precaution with everything. I remember Dr. Pizzo had put out a book, and there was a 9-year-old child saying, I wish my doctor would not put on gloves when they enter my room because they know my diagnosis. Folks, it doesn't have to be that way. 2 years ago, just before Stigma conference, I can't tell her name, Chelsea is her assumed name, she died. She was 19-year-old, and I had taken care of her all her life. And she truly, with maybe quadruple, Gila, my wife, knew her very well, and all our unit, Patty and everybody, we treated her like our own daughter, because she so what you're looking at is surrogate dad. She used to call me dad, and she was with 4 D's at the end. And I loved it. I mean, I ate it all up. No question about it. And she, 2 years before she died, she stopped taking her medicine. She said, Dr. Rana, after all these years, every time I sit down somewhere, somebody, and when I get up, somebody would come and put a antiseptic wipe there. She says, when I eat, people put my dishes to the side because they are going to clean it in a special way. She said, Doctor, is this the life I'm going to live for the rest of my life? And she stopped taking her medication. She could have lived indefinitely. On the medications that she was on, she could have lived indefinitely. However, she chose not to take it because of stigma, she found this life not worth living. She didn't die of HIV. What did she die of? Stigma. She died of stigma. It doesn't have to be that way, folks. It doesn't have to be that way. And I just leave you as a physician, but more as a surrogate dad for close to 100 kids, some of those who have died, some of those who are living. Believe me, in the 27 to 30 years that I've been involved with HIV, we have much better medication. We can fill this room with the quality literature that has been produced. We have spent maybe, give me a figure, $400 billion, $500 billion in research for HIV. I challenge Dr. Greenberg, I challenge Dr. Papas, I challenge Dr. Kofei. Quote me the figure this government has spent on fighting stigma. It does not reach a couple of million. It doesn't reach a couple of million. When you apply to NIH looking for proposal, give me an RFA which studies stigma in the United States. So, oh, we are only giving it for people in Uganda or in Africa. There were no RFAs. The only people who are doing a little bit of work, mental health. CDC has taken on some work, but overall, you look at the figure being spent on research in other areas, and believe me, I'm not thankless. I get plenty of money from NICHD for doing clinical trials. I get plenty of money from Allen for doing epidemiological research. That is all important. But I get no money. This conference is made possible by $100 from my wife, $1,000 from Alan, money from Patty, money from all of you. That is the only way this conference happens. And I have to thank Gilead. Thanks, Bill. So there is no money for stigma, fighting stigma. So as I leave the stage, I beg you, please say with me, it doesn't have to be that way. Stigma kills. Stigma takes away every single human right of a person living with HIV and many other diseases. It doesn't have to be that way. And that's what this conference is about. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, everybody. Buenos días, Puerto Rico, Perú, y Latinoamérica. As usual, when you have something perfect, it fails. So we don't have now the possibility to show you our slides, which is probably not important. Because my mission today is just to let you know about the center. The Center for Stigma was born with this idea and what our main keynote speaker was mentioning about. The fact that we cannot stop stigma on one day. We need to be here every single day as a group, as a community, and try to provide us with common goals and the best tools that we can develop so we can really continue it on a daily basis, supporting each other because we are a network of people and organizations working on stigma. So very briefly, I was trying to talk to you about the Global Center for Stigma. And then we were trying to do that because we recognize, and since the days of Brian White that was banned by the school system, we continued stigmatizing people with HIV/AIDS. So our vision, because you can see the rest on www.whocanyoutell.org, is that we're supposed to have a world in which individuals will not lose their basic human rights due to illness or disabilities. Yes, we are asked to stop stigma globally. You can see in detail our mission and main goals on our website since we have some delays now. But I was trying to tell you is pretty much why all of you should become partners of the center. And you should become partners of the center because we need to be this, we need to become this kind of forum for a network of agencies and organizations, and this is all of us, because we need to be this global network knowledge and move as a society-wide health response. So, and the most important piece is that all of us as stakeholders have different things to contribute to this center. And if you're here, it's because you already are a partner. That is what we are today in the planning phase. That is what we need from you, your help. And this is what we are going to be able to do every time you go into www.whocanyouTell.org and become a member. The most important thing to tell you is that all of you are the center, and to stop stigma, we need to work together. So can you join us today? Thank you.